Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conscious Matrix Interviews. I am your host, Brad Johnson. Thank you so much for tuning in with us live today. The very first episode that we had with the Conscious Matrix Interviews was very impactful, featuring Rob Gauthier, and really great interaction on the Q&A. So I want to thank everybody from all over the world that's tuning into this particular interview today, as I have another very special guest. I have Amateo Ra on the show here today, and it's going to be a very exciting interview. Amateo, thank you so much for being a part of the Conscious Matrix interviews today.
I feel honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. And hey, from one Sirian to another, it's finally good for us to connect. So
it sure is. You know, we've been streaming for a little while now. I think some parallel broadcasts from a similar source. So it feels really good to be able to commune and share in these thoughts.
Exactly. And I think that's where we'll start things off, is looking more into the idea of your connection, your celestial connections as well, too.
Sure.
And basically just how this all started for you. You know, how did this all introduce itself into your life?
Great question. You know, as many people who are probably tuning into this broadcast, went through a series of awakenings. And this series, you know, for me, awakening was not like a one-time thing. It's something that keeps happening in my life. I keep on like breaking through deeper levels of myself and my connection. And I went through this journey of going through these awakenings. And at one point, after really releasing some stuff, I think I had been holding on to, you know, and I share this because it was a direct parallel. I literally like released a portion of who I wasn't, and I made room for who I was. And I was going through this process of being very immersed in channeling. I was reading a lot of channelings and listening to a lot of channelings and just very much involved and engrossed in this world. And at one point, I decided to try it myself, to get my hands on everything that I could and implement it. You know, the opening the channel book and some Bashar material, even some of your material, Brad. You know, definitely getting into everything I could. And this was about 3.5, 4 years ago, and I just started trance channeling. You know, at that time, I didn't really know exactly what my connection was and who I was going to be channeling. I just started doing it and just started to see the, you know, just trusting the energy, trusting the message. There's quite a few people who sometimes are nervous about that process, and when you just let it in, when you just let it come through, you realize how safe and held you are. And I started speaking. And I was actually working with a fellow channel at the time. Her name's Solara and Ra. She's from the UK. And she very much put me on the spot and said, okay, who is this? And I, you know, answered. And the name was Ratava from Sirius. And this was a beautiful being, very highly intelligent, that feels like is me in the future. Feels like is this extension of my consciousness. And I very clearly in that moment saw the branches of my oversoul, saw the branches of my higher self and how I was incarnating in these different planes and timelines, and saw how the easiest way for me to access the divine was to access a higher conscious entity that was interrelated with me, and thus why it was natural for me to channel this. You know, I think that was big, because maybe there was the part of my mind who thought it would be strange to just be channeling an entity. So that came in, and I started, you know, communicating these messages, and I have to say it's been incredibly life-changing.
Wow. And as soon as I saw that video from Ratava from Sirius, I said, oh, okay, that's a Sirian name. As soon as I heard the name Ratava, I said, that's it. And the way that you were channeling as well, too, very much on par, you know, to, again, you know, the way I channel and the way that Darrow Anka has channeled Bashar as well, too. So, again, a lot of that particular type of energy. Now, with Ratava, how long have you been doing that type of Sirian channeling? Has that been for a while?
Yeah, it has been. I've been doing that for about 3 years, and you know, ran into some health problems about 8 months ago and needed to take a break. Had a hernia, and I just didn't feel right to channel. And now I'm on the recovery and about to initiate. You know, Ratava has been very present with me, and we're now about to initiate this kind of next octave of transmissions for this paramount time. And Ratava is a very serious name. In fact, I was given the name Ratava, and for months didn't realize that it was actually the word avatar spelled backwards.
Yeah.
It was just revealed to me out of the blue, and that was very interesting.
That is very interesting as well too, because basically with me talking to Rob Gothia as well too, because he was talking about Trebor Yitney, which is backwards entity Robert, and so that's very very interesting as well too. So I don't know, I haven't really put Adronis's name backwards, but I don't think I have to. But it's just very very interesting. Um,
For sure.
but I think again, a lot of people who are looking to get into channeling and really want to pursue it as well too are always interested in hearing about the perspective about how people go into the channeling state. Are you able to describe exactly how you're able to go into the state and how the process is in regards to how you're able to access information from Ratava?
Mhm. Absolutely. I initiate the process with, this deep throat breathing, and really start to just take my energy and still it. And the best analogy that I could have is it feels like my ego persona is on stage all the time. And it feels like those entities are backstage, guiding, directing, informing. And as I start to breathe and really tune in, I intentionally switch the stage. I bring the entity forward and my consciousness. So it's not that my consciousness turns off or even that I go to sleep. Sometimes some channels have had fun with that, the idea of sleeping on the job or that kind of a notion. But for me, it's very much I'm backstage. I'm still very present. And I feel my ego consciousness almost get like a little ball and go to the back occipital of my mind. It seems like it goes right to the back of my neck, and then this energy comes in, and I start to feel the stream. While that stream is landing inside of my body, I make room. Sometimes I shake or jerk and just let it fill in any sleepy places that aren't prepared for it. And I do this breath of knowingness where I feel like all the information that I'm going to be accessing in the session is available to me right now. Every single component of it. So I literally breathe in the information and breathe out the information. It's this real dynamic, like continuity stream, and then I can feel Ratava just kind of inside of myself,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a really interesting experience. And I kind of feel taken over, and it's puppeteered, if you will, and it's very enjoyable actually. It's a surrender that's dear to my heart. And then I just take a moment to let Ratava get settled in my body, and my eyes sometimes flicker, and I can see the ongoing streams of codes coming in and information, and I kind of just look back and up into my third eye and translate that the best that I can. Before I got into channeling, I used to work in the legal industry as a professional stenographer, which meant that I was a court reporter taking down testimony all day, being able to translate information very quickly from what I heard into things that I wrote. And I felt like that was training, even though I never knew it at the time, for channeling, which is so similar, which is the ability to be bombarded by such a bandwidth of information and be able to tailor it and communicate it in a way that's very impactful. And I feel like that is still the human job, which is the active translator to the best of our ability.
Exactly, and that's very, very similar to how I first started the channel as well too. Was getting this feeling that you already know what the entire session will be about as the consciousness comes through you. It's like you're just being downloaded into this big, gigantic package stream, and I refer to it as a stream of consciousness as well too. Just basically feeling like the chakra centers are lighting up, so to speak, illuminating. Your whole body is being filled with its energy, and this transmission starts happening. And it's like you're getting, if it's a 1 hour session, you're getting this whole hour session in 1 second. And then it's basically just playing itself out. It's kind of like an unfolding box, so to speak. And you're getting this unfolding box together. So very, very
I always call it unpackaging. Yeah, I get the package.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
very similar. It's
Yeah,
amazing. And what's really remarkable to me is that when I transition states, it's always, even though Ratava comes in, there's always a collective. And I can tune into that collective. And all of a sudden it's like, Ashikanis are online, and all these different beings are online, and the different interstellar alliance components, and I feel this like orchestration, and it's so beautiful. Even if I'm just working with a single person, how much support there is for this work, it's always remarkable for me, and initially was very intimidating. Sometimes still is.
Well, can you tell me about the Ascension Academy? Because I think that was one of your old websites, and now you're moving on to Amateo Ra. Can you tell me about the epicenter of this energy?
Absolutely. So Ascension Academy, this was really leading into 2012, was really about the clarification of what Ascension is. I felt like there was a lot of considerations out there about we would have this spontaneous transcendence. Like just spontaneously we would open up and activate into a new world, a new realm. And I was receiving information to really clarify that, to really clarify, I remember one time someone asked Ratava, how will ascension happen? And his response was, oh, you'll build it. Which was okay, it's very practical. I think that's one of the things. So Ascension Academy was really here to address high-level metaphysics, integrate them into people's lives, and help sort through a lot of the misinformation. I think that as channels who really tried, or more so just really looking for the integrity of the pure stream, we have a lot to sort through in this world. As there's a lot of people just getting started and putting messages out there, and so really wanted to clarify that. So I started the Ascension Academy for that purpose. Was doing workshops and talking a lot about Pistis Sophia and the return of wisdom and the restructuring of the tree of life to balance out the harmonics of the earth and how that is relating to us dissolving the boundaries of our individual consciousness and our environment. And then after the end of 2012, I started to kind of close that out a little bit. Currently, as Amateo Ra, I'm focusing on supporting people and really supporting people creating projects and businesses. Funny enough, Spirit pushes you in directions that you never thought you'd be in. I never thought that I would be supporting people on a career and business level, but it's very much been my direct guidance of like, okay, it's not just about tapping into this information, it's about applying this information and using it into the physical world, and really being able to structure solutions in ways that can be shared with the world at large. And so that's what Amateo Ra has really been up to, as well as with the channeling thing. And I'm working on a project now called Creator Course, which is really my big birthing. And Creator Course started with a variety of online programs that we released to help educate people on lifestyle information and spiritual information and building projects and careers and ideas. And there's the notion of finding your life purpose, but then there's the notion of creating your life purpose. Really supporting that vector. And now Creator Course has evolved, and what we're building is the world's first online school of consciousness. Really orienting on all this variety of topics of conscious studies and making that information from a wide variety of creators such as yourself available to a large audience.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big issue that a lot of people are talking about. There's actually a question here on the Q&A. And by the way, everybody who's submitting questions right now, don't worry, your questions are getting through. I'm getting some people saying, oh, is my questions getting through? How does this work? You've already posted your questions, so we are going to be getting your questions very, very shortly. But in regards to what Amateo was just talking about, there's a really good question here from Silver Neon.
Awesome.
He's basically talking about that as well, too. He says the economic status right now is really bad. People are having difficulty finding good jobs. The entire money system needs to change. We need this now as billions of people are living a low-quality life. What can we do right now to fix this issue? And I think that's basically what it's about. I think that people are moving more into the entrepreneurial field. They're really looking more into what they're capable of and offering themselves as a grassroots business to really help to establish themselves, because we now know that the old systems don't work. What do you feel in regards to that issue as well?
I really agree. I think that that often we associate spirituality as a top-down approach, but the implementation of spirituality is a bottom-up approach.
That's right.
And this grassroots mentality, I see all of these major global challenges as opportunities to raise consciousness, organize, and create. I was chatting with Radhava the other day, and I said, give me some insights. I just feel like I'm just curious about where you want to take me right now. And they gave me a great insight. They said, you live on a planet, which means your job is to plan it.
That is so Sirian to do that as well too. Yeah, it's
to plan it on a planet, and the idea of that is that this is a huge opportunity for us to to step up in our creatorship, to step up in how we create solutions. So, like economically, we have the opportunity now more than ever to create new viable economic solutions. You're seeing other countries that are actually looking to get the whole country on transparent cryptocurrency and leave the old economic world behind. You're seeing these major shifts on very simple levels where a simple algorithm can replace the entire economic system overnight. That's a big deal. I think that when we first thought of revolution in terms of this conscious awakening, we might have thought of buildings burning and all this big kind of cataclysmic approach. And although we have had those natural events, I love that nature does have this gentle wave about it, and I think that we're seeing this as a more organic process. And I inspire everyone to you've got a calling. Everybody's got a calling, something that they want to do, and pursue that. Create your own career, create your own job. We have there's enough support. This whole world is becoming the idea of sharing our gifts with each other and us elevating in abundance as one. And it's a very, very hopeful future.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's been a lot of my own philosophy as well too. And bringing Adronis through, he has shared a lot too. Is that basically a lot of where your future lies is in what you would refer to as entrepreneurship, but it's even on a higher level as well too. It's like a whole, new age based idea of entrepreneurship that you're moving it into a whole new spectrum in that way, where it is a lot about cooperation. It's not all about bang for your buck, so to speak. And it's not all about the idea of simply receiving profit. You're really bringing a lot of integrity into it as well too. And so, it's amazing how many of us channelers and psychics, intuitives, everybody else is getting a lot of this information that they're starting to say, well, a lot of the old systems aren't starting to work anymore. And that's why there is a quote-unquote economy collapse. Because as long as you exist within that type of economy, you're going to collapse with it, because that economy is falling apart. It's dropping itself down. And now we need to rise from that, again, from the bottom up, and planet, as you say, because again, that's a great analogy as well too. And being able to look into whole new systems that are much more integrity based, and looking more into the idea of how you can service man, how you can service the planet, how you can service nature and the animals, and basically move it into that direction rather than the idea of following a system that is corrupt and that no longer works. That's just the indication of the universe is saying, well, then why are you still working with that? Why are you still going into a system that doesn't work and that you're not happy with? So it's a really, really strong momentum of energy that the universe is bringing forward right now and saying it's time for humanity to change, to move it into more of this entrepreneurial, organizational, cooperative, where a lot more of you are able to get together. And it's kind of like you're joint venturing together, you're partnering together. Exactly. It's not like there's a superior and then there's the lowers. It's everybody else is just getting together, they're cooperating, and it's all part of a unification practice. So, and I think I saw your post on Facebook today about your intention about creating this as well too. So it sounds very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea of economy, and if you look at economy, we actually have a thriving economy of new systems happening right before our eyes. Important conscious content is being shared more than ever. You go to all, I tend to be very involved in the online blog world, and when you look at the online blogs, the Mind Unleashed, Spirit Science and Metaphysics, and these different ones they're booming right now, inspirational content and conscious content is actually outperforming the leading content developers of mainstream media. They can't keep up. They can't. Their numbers don't even touch or come close to what conscious content is doing in the sharing world. And from that experience, we are in the most vibrant sharing commerce we've ever seen, knowing that information really does influence us and develop our lives. And so I do see this. It's a very particular time. We do within us have to make these boundaries, and I always find that systems are like relay runners. And one of them will run until it's about to fall over, and it passes the baton at the last moment to the next person who can, grab it and take the lead. And I think that right now we have to be very, very aware, very, very considerate with how we close off this old systems and don't feed them anymore, and how we let the lessons, nothing will go away until it teaches us what we need to learn. And there's so much vital information. And in this world, I really, because this is something that I do a lot, is I just create the invitation of what is this old system trying to teach us? What are the vast array of lessons here, so that we can take those lessons and integrate them into the new way? Because there's so much here that we really need to get the point on, and that's going to really inform what we build, and that is going to allow it to go away sooner than later.
Exactly, yeah. And with the people that you have been working with extensively, has there been kind of a main topic that you feel that kind of wraps around the equilibrium of everybody that you've associated with? Has there been kind of like this drive as well too to move not only into entrepreneurship, but how people are also bettering themselves as a human being? Has there been any kind of really personal experiences that have personally impacted you in regards to the people that you've worked with?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Just seeing the success of one, people becoming the lifestyle examples that I never thought were possible. I meet people every day who are living such vibrant lives, eating incredible superfoods and doing their meditations and caring for themselves on such a wonderful level, and then watching how their lifestyle impacts their projects and how their projects become successful because of the level of their relationship with their self. That's been extremely inspiring for me, and I've integrated a lot from that, and also just the big mission right now, which is come together with people of like interests and like lifestyles. Create your tribe. That's been the big message recently of make sure you surround yourself with those who are vibrationally resonant. I think that especially before 2012, we all had a little bit of this more solo mission where we were all holding the grid. We're like, I've got to be conscious in this location, and I got to be conscious in this location, even though there's not a lot of people like me around. I've got to do that because that's my message. And I feel like we're now able to let that go. That was then. And we did need to hold those vibrations in those remote locations. But now we really need to create the hubs. And we need to come together to build those hubs. Whether it's a contact hub where you're coming together to invoke contact with extraterrestrial intelligence continually in a group, that's very powerful. You'll make incredible progress there. Whether you're masterminding to build a business or to launch a new solution that helps people connect and share resources, come together with other people who are interested in that, and be grounded. Be focused, be realistic. I think that we are a culture of visionaries, and as the Gene Key says, true magic is found in realism.
I think one of the biggest challenges as well too is when a person, like we would look at December 21st, 2012 as a benchmark time, and that really was a very, very energetic day. And I think a lot of the work that we were doing prior to that, like you were saying, holding the energies, holding the frequencies together, was all about kind of creating like a 100th monkey effect. And then as soon as we crossed that threshold, now it's like all that we have created before that time is now starting to produce itself into 2013, 2014, and onward. So now we're starting to get into that. And I feel one of the biggest issues people have in saying, is this really the time for me to actually start being responsible? Do I really need to pick up myself now and decide, okay, it's no longer me working for the man. It's now time for me to look for my man, for myself, for me to start to work together for myself. Now, have you noticed that very large shift, I guess you could say, after 2012, and noticing that people are in that way inspired, but also a lot of people are also kind of afraid because they feel, oh my goodness, now it's time I need to start taking responsibility. Now it's the time I have to find out exactly what I want to do with my future and make sure that this continues to prosper.
One, I love what you said about responsibility. I think that we're now in the position that we have to take ownership of our lives, and this is vital. We have to completely take ownership of everything. One, to come into the recognition that everything is programming everything all the time. Every action you make, every choice, every decision, every movement, everything you do is deciding the timeline of your future. And we're in this phase of seeing this collapsed field of it's a nexus point where all of that's available to us. but it's going to branch out into this multitude of directions, this kind of timeline bifurcation that I know all of us, Channels and Bashar, have talked about extensively, of like, we're really in this orientation of a multiplicity of timelines. And how you choose to program your life right now is extremely important. And I think that don't let that create stress for you. Like that's the big thing. And it has for me. It really has for me, but it's also lit a fire under my ass, which is great.
Yeah.
But I agree. Right now, we are in this incredible phase where we have to take ownership, because you're not going to be fulfilled by the comfortable ways of living and operating and doing that you used to. It's not going to give you what you used to get out of it, unfortunately. TV's not going to fulfill you. Mindless, you know what I mean? Like, this stuff isn't going to give you what you're looking for, and you can't ignore it anymore. You have to do something about it. And
exactly.
when there's other people who are really taking this seriously and doing something about it, we owe it to each other to keep up. We owe it to each other to really do the work together, because that's how this all changes. So I'm really big about responsibility, because responsibility and ownership means that every choice you make is up to you. You're claiming the power of your free will. You're realizing that you're in charge of these circumstances to a certain extent. You just have influence on them. You have influence on how you respond to them. You have influence on how you plan it, right? you have that influence. You have that involvement and that engagement. I think a big part of it is that we were disempowered before, and now those boundaries of that disempowerment are dissolving. You used to do the empowerment network, either the empowerment. What was your old organization?
I think it was Self-Empowerment TV, or Are You Self-Empowered.com. Yeah.
That's right. Yep, self-empowerment. It's just that, right? Be self-empowered. But we are seeing there is a massive career migration going on. And it's huge. I mean, everybody is changing careers faster than ever, more than ever. People are jumping. Every tech company in the world, the biggest issue they have is keeping creatives on board, because the creatives are so full of these ideas.
Yeah.
And bringing it back to the context of what's really bringing this conversation together, this has to do with the fact that the relay of our higher intelligence is diminishing. It's becoming closer and closer and closer. And to a certain extent, we're literally building our collective consciousness and our higher self-consciousness through artificial intelligence and the internet. It's becoming, we're seeing how we can actually model this higher network of connectivity and communication in something tangible and physical.
Mm-hmm.
It's stellar. So yes.
And I think it's very interesting too, because a lot of the people that are coming into the world right now are just these incredible children, these incredible, teenagers, young adults, and they are really the pioneers for this. I mean, a 19-year-old has now actually developed the ability to create technology, to actually work together with the oceans, to actually help clean up the oceans, and actually feel that it can sustain itself in that way. I mean, that's innovative thinking. You have so many of these brilliant young children, and my own guidance is basically telling me that a lot of these souls are actually coming from what we would understand as our future, 300, 500, 1,000 years from our future, actually carrying that knowledge with them and bringing that into their body, and it starts to become a lot more shown. It's an amalgamation effect that's coming into their body. So we basically have, quote-unquote, soul time travelers that are coming into our past right now to alter our present so that our future can be very much sped up in that way as well too. It really is just a very, very fascinating way to look at all of this and to see exactly how these people have these brilliant ideas. They're innovative, and they're not feeling that education is attempting to stump them anymore. Now they're letting themselves realize, the education doesn't work for me, and now there's a whole new dawning of me being able to take this. It really is the time of the independent. It is the time of those who are all coming up with great ideas, and they synergize. They just synergize, they energize, they align, and bye-bye to corporatocracy. It doesn't work anymore. It's all about organizations. It's about foundation. It's about creating an organism, I feel, and it really just relates itself not only to career, but to all facets of life as well, too.
And that's exactly right. We are living systems living in a living system. And every component of this living system now needs to be accounted and dialed into a harmonic way. We can track things like we never could track before. We can track endangered species. We can track the multitude of living systems on this planet, and Yeah, I'm really, really grateful about these souls coming in because they're showing me so much. And I used to be kind of that early waver. You know, I'm 27 now. When I was 21 to 24, I was this awakened evolutionary. And although I still have that, I'm now in this wonderful position to really be receiving from the 19 and 21 year olds and to be learning so much from them and to see that that their imagination, their desire to make a difference, and their ability to do so is so dramatically connected. The delay is almost obsolete. It's
Absolutely.
amazing.
Now, going to your channeling state with Ratava, has there been a particular message that Ratava has given you that you feel has stood out very recently or perhaps in the past? Has there been something like that that you feel that you could share with anybody that you
Mm.
felt was a really outstanding message brought by this Sirian consciousness?
Um, Interestingly enough, it's very similar to what I shared before,
I like the
which is
planet thing. That was good.
the
The
planet.
planet was
Yeah,
nice.
totally. But
That
really,
was
really
great.
the orientation of another one that he gave me recently was encompass, to be within the completeness of every different passing thing that's coming through you. How you're encompassing and how you're compassing your timeline. So Ratava's real core message is integrate yourself and allow yourself to be who you truly are, boldly, uninhibitedly, but with sensitivity to the collective. And then take your choices, actions, and decisions, and design your timeline. Visualize your future, know what you want it to be like, and then take that scale and figure out how you can make some kind of holographic variation of that right now, and start there, and you'll get there. But know that know the level of impact you're making, and don't trivialize it based on conditioning. Um, it's massive.
Mhm.
It's
Absolutely.
massive.
That's great. I mean, it's amazing how much information just comes through them and how we're actually just kind of patternizing all of this information and making it something that we can understand actually in a very tangible way as well too. So
Mhm.
that's very great. All right, Amateo, so we're going to go ahead and we're getting questions piled up here in the Q&A. So now it's
Awesome.
fun Q&A time. So I'm going to go ahead and select our very first question. And our very first question here comes from a friend of mine, Sirian. And Sirian asks, do you have any techniques of identifying and releasing negative beliefs?
Mm, wonderful, wonderful. Um, so one um, is being able to track your room for improvement. Okay, so for me and the work that I've done with Ratava, it hasn't so much been about releasing negative beliefs as it has been about up-leveling or evolving the belief system itself. Um, so getting away from this idea that we're trying to rid ourselves of something, because that itself can be a limiting belief, right?
Yes, precisely.
So let's address the notion of up-leveling beliefs on its own. When you have a belief system, so say the belief system is oriented on abundance, right? So this is one that I've worked on. I know a lot of people out there have worked on, which is the idea of scarcity, of oh, I'm trying to overcome scarcity, or I'm trying to surpass scarcity, or get to the next level of my wealth abundance, so on and so forth. That's still a belief system that's limiting, and you could spend a lot of time, as I did, trying to release the belief system of scarcity. Took me a long time and it never worked. I got very frustrated. I said, why is it still there? Why is it still there? And at one point I realized that my job here isn't to try to overcome the notion of scarcity. It's to manage the immense amount of abundance that's available to me at all times.
Exactly.
And I
And that's
all,
that's
all
good. Yeah.
I used all of that energy and I completely created a paradigm shift around it. So that paradigm shift now, I only consider my situation as different variations of multitudes of abundance that I have to manage and allocate and distribute and share and be grateful for, and cherish. that helped me so much in this scenario. So when you go into belief systems, track something that you want to improve about yourself. Understand how the past was serving you. You know, this is kind of standard recipe. But then really negotiate what the next first step on repatterning that to a higher level would be. And then create an action for it. Get on the ground. So if it is the scarcity consciousness and you reframe that paradigm to what I just mentioned, to abundance, maybe the first thing you want to do is create the opportunity to give some gifts to friends. That's a great way to get on the ground and get action oriented. So when it comes to belief repatterning, don't leave it in the belief system. Bring it back to the physical world and create an action that's the mirrored hologram of the up-leveled belief that you just created and implement it, and you're going to have so much success because then you start building momentum on this next octave of belief system. And that's what needs momentum. So without action, it sometimes is very easy for the old belief system to continue to run because it doesn't have momentum on the other side of things. The more momentum you build and then scale that exponentially, it goes really, really well. So that kind of is across the board. Hope it wasn't too meta, but there we go.
That's great. That's great too, and I could refer to that as just up leveling, and it's very similar to a book I'm writing right now called Rainbow Wisdom, and it's all about that. Rather than feeling, oh my goodness, this is so horrible, acknowledge it. You know, really look into the idea of blessing that energy, even if it's something that you feel is so detrimental to yourself. It's only detrimental to yourself based upon that assignment, based upon that definition. And the reason why it continues to creep up in your reality is because you have not embraced it. You know, it's a shadow self, and you know the shadow self is not looking to be blown away. It's not looking to be escaped from. It's not looking to be ignored. It's looking to be embraced. And that is all part of negative belief, is that as long as we continue to deny that this is not a part of ourselves, it's going to keep coming back, and it's going to get stronger and more intense and more intense. And so you're up leveling and you're attaining that state of rainbow wisdom to understand this is a part of me. I've been fighting myself for so long, and now it's now it's finally come to the point. Yes, I accept you. I acknowledge that you exist. I love you. Thank you so much for showing another part of me that I feel I'm now ready to transcend. So you're basically moving into that state of acknowledgement. You're moving into that state of forgiveness. You're moving into that state of liberation. So again, that's the key. So again, Sirian, thank you so much for sharing that information. So we're going to go ahead. Go ahead.
Add real quick that it's very natural when you have a negative belief or something you want to up-level to distance yourself from it, right? To just take space. And a lot of times that's where the negativity is actually a service to us, because we come down to distance ourselves from it. It's a negative. We're pushing it away until you can see it and then bring it back in and embrace it. So just for all those people out there, know that a lot of times for human consciousness, when we're up-leveling beliefs, we tend to give it a negative association just to distance ourselves from it at first in order to see that there's actually an opportunity for up-leveling, and then you can integrate.
Exactly, and that's the key as well too. So let me see if I had another good question here. I think it's from Raul, and Raul asks, again, this is kind of an interesting perspective. Why are there more sheeps than shepherds? Is that for balancing purposes? Could sheeps be disguising themselves as shepherds? I really don't tend too much to the idea of sheeps and shepherds, but I understand exactly what he's meaning. Sure. Any sharing that you have on this in regards to that response?
One is that disassociating from the idea that leaders are more valuable than followers. Let's just address that belief. The belief is this notion of the fact that leaders are more valuable than people who are willing to follow leaders. I don't necessarily ascribe to that belief because, you know, building a business myself, we bring in tons of people and they're all leaders, and we can't really get a whole lot done because we have our own leading vision, and this is something that's very common actually on certain entrepreneurial circuits and everything else. There's so many leaders, but there's so few maintenance people and people willing to put in the good work. They're so valuable. They're so valuable. People who are willing to put in the grit, as you say, or just really be willing to show up in service is so valuable. And there's a lot of people, I believe that it's biological programming. So when you look into brain programming, frontal lobes tend to be more strategic thinking leader types. Basal left, basal right, and the back lobes of the brain, the people who have that more hyper-developed tend to be a lot more of the service provider type, right? So that means that they're more in service to the collective. That means they're a little bit less self-thinking, self-oriented. So one is to recognize the beauty of this, opportunity, and know that, yes, everybody has their own sovereign leadership, and know that it's a really great thing for us to pave different opportunities for people so that they can follow and be a part of. And not from a guru standpoint or something they don't standpoint, but rather a shared value system. It's a leveling of the playing field that should create this relationship, not a one greater than the other, but literally it's the shared value systems, it's the shared mission, the shared vision, the shared drive that levels the playing field. Someone who's working for me or working with me are the same thing, and we're equal. We're so equal because what makes us equal is the reason that we've even come together, anyways. So yeah.
Exactly. And we have another question here from Silver Neon. And Silver Neon asks, I want what is best for humanity as a collective. However, many say to do this, we must vote as a collective. Getting collective momentum is not always a feasible option, as the collective is ununiformed and asleep for the most part. How can we get past this? And I think, Amateo, if you want to comment on this, and I can probably do a follow-up as well, too.
Sure. Microsystems. There's a... although I can't necessarily vouch for this, there was a politician who wanted to break California up into 6 smaller states for the sake of commerce, right? I think that this mentality is smart. If we are all, the idea of trying to drive the entire collective to the same value principles is going to be very challenging. But to build a whole we should be a modular culture, a modular culture where we all have our agreed principles and way of living. I want to coexist with people who share that, and I want them to be in my local community. Right now, it's starting online because we're formulating those bonds and connections within our collective hemisphere of consciousness, and now it's becoming real. That's how I live. I live with a collection of creators and incredible people, and we have a lot of people coming in and out who share the same principles, the same lifestyle, and the same way of existing. It's really, really fulfilling. So again, it goes back to that aggregating principle of the more that we come together within these microsystems everywhere and in different ways, the more we affect massive global change.
Exactly, and that's the feeling as well too that I'm getting is just microsystems really working more so for yourself, because if you feel that you have to work on behalf of a collective, then you're basically shouldering a big amount of responsibility. Feeling, well, you know what, the whole world is asleep, so I'm just going to do all this for them to see if I got to wake them up, And a lot of when we channel spirit, one of the biggest things you say in saying that's not your work, that's not why you're here. Your whole purpose is to do the best that you can in regards to what you know yourself to be naturally, and being able to become an example. And this is the whole idea of the microsystem idea as well too, is that we're all just being power nodes, we're being nodules in that way. And it's kind of like looking at North America from afar, and you're seeing these little light bulbs coming up, and they're starting to light themselves up. You're seeing the new expansion of these modules coming together. You're seeing people taking responsibility, and it's not about you feeling that you have to be responsible for shifting the wave of the consciousness on a collective level. That's not your job. That's not why you're here on this planet. You're here to make the best of yourself, and what can you do to represent everything that you understand as the collective and integrate that into yourself. And this is why, again, it's about integrating. Oh my God, I sounded serious there for a moment. It's about integrating that idea into yourself, and letting that singular consciousness of what you are become a module, and just seeing all those light bulbs lighting up around the continents all across the world.
That's right.
That's
and
really
the invitation of this is so beautiful. I mean, have you ever driven by less than ideal restaurant and it made you even want to eat healthier, right? like you drive
McDonald's
by
all
a
the
fast
time.
food all the time, right? You drive by a fast food restaurant and you're like, oh, I'm so gonna go get a healthy salad, right? Like,
Yeah.
there reaches a point where you go through that evolution, which is the beauty of this. Rather than viewing some kind of unconscious or lesser conscious collective as a threat or as the thing that needs to be changed, view it as the invitation. We're all looking at that and being like, oh, geez, I don't want that. And we're creating something different because of it. Um, it's where we are and who we are right now, and it's quite the gift
Hmm.
to have that kind of contrast because it makes miracles possible.
Precisely, exactly. I said McDonald's, but I really meant McDonkadonks. So, anyways,
Right?
so that's how I always refer to it every time I'm riding by or walking by. Like, yes, exactly.
Yeah,
And that's the whole idea too. You see the worst of something, and you want to find the best of something in regards to that
that's right.
parallel. So again, that's shifting frequency. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk to Just Being Bean. Just Being Bean here has a question here, and Just Being Bean asks, how does one create in alignment with money? No reason to earn a living when it is already our birthright. Money as it's based off of fraud, fiat currency. That's a lie, and it's blood money that, as it says on the Federal Reserve note itself, in God we trust. Well, again, Just Being Bean, I'll tackle this first, and then Amateo can
Sure.
follow up. But the whole idea really is that, yes, we certainly do have a polarity with money. We do have the idea of feeling that, we're looking into the root of all money, of feeling that it's blood money, that it's corporatocracy, that it's fiat, that it's exchange, et cetera, et cetera. So rather than feeling that we're going to put all this hate on top of the money, what can we do now to flip that around? So if we got this whole idea of feeling that this came through corruption, what can we do with that money now to pass it through a filter and make it into something for ourselves? Because really, money in its form of manifestation right now represents the energetic exchange of your own value. And if you feel that everything relating to your own anger with money, and that you're hating money, and that money is so horrible, and you're throwing all your anger at money, and believe me, I used to do this as well too, and that you can't stand it, and you wish it would just go away, yet here you are, and you're still continuing to suffer, because the whole idea is that you have not yet created that synchronization of realizing that all of that monetary exchange is just a physical representation, a physical manifestation of your own value, and realizing that as long as I'm able to take my own value and I see what I do, I love what I do, then money serves as that prop for me to continue to work together with the world. Is money going to be here forever? Absolutely not. It is going to phase out, but in order for it to phase out, one must harmonize with the idea. It's that if we're, I really don't like the idea of being angry. I don't like the idea of being sad. I don't like the idea of being in despair. Well, I mean, those are feelings that can be, quite unsettling. But sometimes those forms of feelings are helping you to come from the bottom up. As we say, we're talking about uprising. We're up-leveling here. And that's the same with money. So if you want to really be able to take all of that exchange of money and make it into your own value for something that you're going to do that will assist the world, rather your world, and being able to become a shining example of you being able to do all these things, to create new projects, to create new products, to develop new services, to create grassroots organizations, so that finances and education in that sense will now have much more of a positive growth. That's the whole idea of positive reinforcement to the idea of money. So it's not so much the idea of feeling that money is inherently evil, that we have to look at it in that way. It certainly has been used in many different forms relating to corporatocracy and corruption, absolutely. But there's another side to it. And so it really is just about the idea of flipping the coin and being mindful of your value to represent the usage of money in that state of exchange. Amateo, anything you'd like to share on this?
Yeah, I think one of the big paradigms, talking again about the belief up-leveling, one of the biggest paradigms for me was to actually truly research what was the core source of money and its origins. I needed to know that in order to redefine my relationship around money. And what I came to find out, via Charles Eisenstein, give a good shout out to him, was this notion that money started with the idea of, say Brad gives me a service, say he gives me a session, and at that time I'm so grateful, but he's totally blown my mind, and I don't have something to give him in exchange right now. I got to integrate his session. I'm like, hey, I don't have something right now. Let me give you a token of gratitude, which is what this is, a token of gratitude. That's where money came from. To say, hey, at any time, Brad, you can redeem this, and I would love to give you something of value that lets you know how grateful I am for what I just received from you.
Exactly.
And what happened was, at some point I said, so that you know it's my token of gratitude, I'm going to stamp my face on it. So we used to be passing around coins with each other's faces on it, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And then this disparity arose of all of these kinds of things and corruption. So what was really helpful for me to realize that there was actually purity in the beginning of all of this. That then became corruption. And for me, I have to find the origins of purity because I'm just deep like that in order to reframe certain value systems and belief systems inside of myself. And now I've come to understand, like you were saying, that it's just this beautiful bridge. You know, the fact that I can take money and then turn it into cryptocurrency and then buy things with cryptocurrency. The boundaries between this corrupted notion of the dollar and resources and information, for me, is all just breaking down into a continuous stream of exchange. And at the same time, I've come to very much just embrace money for as long as it's around, while invoking and developing new systems and encouraging those new systems and voting for those new systems, for the sake of really realizing that this new paradigm, this new conscious way of living systems, have to be incredibly lucrative. We need to be incredibly lucrative so that we have a model that's proven that can support 7 billion people, 8 billion, 10 billion people. This model as a living system has to prove that it can manage and develop that kind of abundance and resources, even if it's got some kind of imaginary component for it. The fact that even now we've been so encouraged to create progress and innovation as a result of an imaginary value system says a lot. Well, we need to create our own imaginary value system that's even more motivating, even more generative, even more supportive. And that's just our opportunity. And in the meantime, if we need to make a bunch of money to do that, sure. The biggest thing is that, as Brad was saying, it's about that self-empowerment. It's about that individual growth. And if money helps you live better, feel better, thrive, explore the world, work with the most incredible practitioners in the world, and be mentored and take care of your nutrition and you know, health and wellness levels and up leveling, all of those things, that's massive. And for me, if there's still an intermediary that's a little sticky in the meantime, I'm just going to be okay with that because I know I'm here to evolve, and I'm going to use everything that I can to proliferate that evolution.
Exactly. That's right. All right, and we're going to move on to Tabo. And Tabo here has a question, very interesting one. He says, I feel I may have been a channel for a long time. I've been experiencing voices in my mind that do not sound like me, speaking from a higher place in my mind, as if my mind were an apartment building, and these voices speak to me from the top floor. It's very interesting. Could this be channeling?
Yes, absolutely. My favorite notion about channeling, and Ratava's explained this, is that to some extent we're channeling all the time. And really treating ourselves as antenna means that we are available to this wide bandwidth and broadcast network. I know that you're probably familiar with this, Brad, but it becomes the channel's job to actually be extremely grounded.
Yes.
You know, extremely grounded, so that you can filter through the noise and select the channel that's best fit for you. And that happens naturally through being grounded, I find. It's not even something that you almost have to try to do. But I know when I was first channeling, I became very ungrounded. It was like a cacophony, and I couldn't necessarily sort through all of these messages. One is learning channeling techniques, like we discussed at the beginning of this call, that allow you to really refine a stream to a singular stream is very helpful. You know, and you can play with that. Pick one of those messages and voices that feels very resonant to your heart, and then tune into that and see how much you can let that specific one through while closing off all of the airwaves of all the rest can be a very helpful practice. But yes, that is the beginning of something very powerful. And the more inner work you do, the more emotional alchemy you do, the more, you know, connecting with nature you do, the more that amplification and that stream will become clear for you.
Exactly, and when you're getting a lot of those channeling voices as well too, because there's times too when you start opening yourself up to channeling that you may feel that a whole bunch of presences are just trying to come through you all at once, and it really is just again being grounded and discerning in regards to which one of those aspects would really serve you best in regards to the message that you're attempting to convey, not really to others, but more so to yourself at first, and being
Mm.
able to really be harmonized with that. I mean, when I was first channeling, I was channeling all types of different consciousnesses. It was
Me too.
inner Earth beings. It was the central Sun beings. It was the Pleiadian consciousness. It was Arcturus. It was Lyra. It was all of
Yeah.
these different types of energies. And then Adronis came, and it was like basically the only time I saw an energy of an entity in that way that actually came through. And I just knew, bam, he fit the bill. That's it. This is
Right.
a very large part of myself when I communicate in that way. So when you have a lot of these voices, and there are actually a lot of people who are able to channel many beings at the same time, that they actually start channeling here, they pause for a moment, another entity comes through. They pause for a moment, another entity comes through. And that's fine too, because it really does represent the idea of the message in the form of how it serves. Because, Adronis has said many, many times, it's not really so much about the messenger as it is about the message. And as long as the message serves you in that way, no matter if you're talking to an entity or an enormous collective consciousness, whatever it may be, as long as that energy really serves you and that you're grounded enough to really receive that information, trust that information because it's a part of you, and let that information serve you in the best way it can to help you transform your life altogether. All right.
Exactly.
Well,
I
we
went
have
through that same process. I can relate.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we got quite a few different questions here, so I'm just going to see. Oh, okay, here's a good one. This is from Raul again. And Raul asks, how can you maintain your frequency on a high level? How can you keep that frequency high? Amateo, do you have any suggestions in regards to how one can maintain a high frequency?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one thing is actually going back to Chinese medicine, which is reduce stagnancy. Stagnancy is the idea of where energy sits and starts to accumulate and block the flow of energy. So it's all about keeping that flow open. I'm a very somatic person. I'm a somatic channel, which means I'm body-based. I'm physical-based. So for me, I have to constantly work on my 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 muscle system and musculatory system, and really making sure that my energy is moving. I have to move my body. I have to move my emotions, right? So for me, I have to constantly do this analysis as a channel of where do I have mental stagnancy, emotional stagnancy, physical stagnancy. Maybe the stagnancy, you're really clear, but it's in your physical space, right? Maybe, it doesn't help to have a whole room full of hoarded things and be trying and working so hard on yourself and being trying to have clear energy. If you've got a bunch of things that are being held onto or being stuck, I think the number one thing to keep your vibration high is to keep your vibration moving and to keep your vibration moving in a consistent direction. That consistent direction is the way to maintain it. If you're like me, I have so many ups and downs. I swing a lot, unfortunately and fortunately. It's challenging. It's one of the biggest challenges of my life. High energy and low energy and high energy and low energy. And so I've had to become very adept at the maintaining of the high vibration. Of course, it goes back into the daily practices like meditation and daily channeling work and guides transmission. And, one of the biggest things about being a channel and keeping the vibration high is actually creating meditative space that are thoughtless. I think that's something that I go into meditation, I'm instantly bombarded by messages, and I actually have to turn those messages off at times and stare at tree branches or look at the dirt for half an hour and just collect myself. That's
Yeah,
important too. Um,
exactly.
yeah, so for me, it's really about the little things. The little things maintain my energy. How I eat, am I getting enough negative ions for the positive ions? A lot of times when I'm at the computer, I wear a grounding cable, so I'm grounded and I'm not taking on so much EMF. Keep energy moving, supportive daily practices, do research on superfoods. Some of those can really help maintain tonifying the energy system. And emotional alchemy, I can't emphasize that enough. Your ability to process emotional, the whole ripple of gray energy and all of these entities had to do with the fact of us propagating our emotions out of our system. And I've learned so much that we've created this timeline on Earth now to really access our emotional being. And it's one of the most vital things for us to focus on. And for me, my emotional resonance is directly always connected to my vibrational resonance. And I've tried to deny my emotional resonance and maintain my higher vibrational resonance, and that's probably the biggest thing that's produced those inconsistencies in my energy field.
Exactly. And that's what I call it too as well. If you're feeling that you're in a very low frequency, you want to do something that sparks it. And I find, the three biggest powerful words that you can possibly say is, I love you. And as long as you're able to do that, what you're doing is you're Tai Chiing the high vibration. In Tai Chi, everything is motion, everything is fluid. The water keeps moving. And that's what you want to do. Because even myself, I get high states, I get low states. I'm, a sine wave that's bouncing up and down as well, quite a lot too. Because, we see a lot of the stuff about, what people are talking to us. I mean, there's a question here about what happened in Ukraine, about the MH70 flight that was exploded and all that. And you look at that, and that's, that just tears you apart. Over 300 people losing their lives in that way. And I know there's a question here about a person that wants me to ask about that and feedback. It is what you already know what it is. You already know it's false flag. So, I don't really want to get too much into that because we do want to try and keep the energy vibration high here. But it really is all about finding out what the love frequency is through you to create that ignition spark and being able to continue to carry that kind of in a Tai Chi frame in that way, which kind of leads us into the question here as well too by Sabrina.
I just want to address that real quick.
Oh yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
We can't ignore those things. And in fact, I don't. The channeling guides, everybody says, don't ignore that stuff. Be aware of it. But in that, if I'm really concerned about that, and that brings yes, false flag orientation, all that kind of stuff. If I'm very aware of that, I want to ask myself, if it triggers me emotionally, I want to look at yourself as I look at myself. What triggers me emotionally? What really triggers me about that is the fact that we don't have transparency in our systems, right? I want to know, and I can't know. I can't know the truth. I can't prove the truth. That drives me nuts. That might drive all these other people nuts too. Yeah. Sure, we can prophesize and receive information about it, but it's different. So what I just want to create the invitation there is that if you need that, and that's what triggers you, be more transparent in your personal life. And when you are building your projects, your career, what you're focusing on with your creative and your creator energy, use those kinds of things as an empowerment. I work harder in the morning when I see that kind of stuff still going on. I'm tired of this shit, just like everybody else is. But I look at that and I'm like, all right, that's how much more self-responsibility, self-ownership I need to take. It's not me just being disempowerment. I got to face that. It's happening. Here it is. Let's use that to drive us as a culture to more organization. And not to just, what do we do about that? But no, how do we create the next transparent system? Asking those big questions and dreaming into that, because it helps a lot. So I just wanted to share that so that, I feel like a lot of people get stuck on those kinds of things, and I've been stuck there before, and I'm really empathetic because it's tragic, and we don't like it. No, it's not
exactly.
fun.
And that's the feeling, the feeling of the vibration that goes up and goes down, because we look at that, we look at the thing that happened here with this Malaysia airline that got destroyed, and we look at that, and I think one of the very first natural responses, who was responsible for that? Who did that? We want justice to prevail. And I was actually talking to the individual who was sending me this question firstly on email, and I said, right now it's really about sending the love to all those who were on that flight and making sure that you're blessing them, you're sending them love so that you can really feel them going back up into source energy and blessing that energy, because even when situations like this, as horrible as they are, do happen, transparency will come. It certainly will, because there is always going to be that flow, that momentum of the collective consciousness to bring us in there. Yeah, we don't have all the answers. Right now, if I was to channel Adronis, or if you were to channel Rotava and bring this information through, that's great. But again, that's still speculative because we have no facts to bring that up. So it's basically looking into the idea of this is what we think about it. This is what's happened. Brad, can you validate this? I'm no better than any of you guys. I can't validate this. We can always give our opinions and our perspectives in regards to this that may later be confirmed, but that's not really the big issue right now, is really looking into saying that, yes, this has impacted us, this has hurt us as a collective, because we're all experiencing it. As soon as something like this happens, it goes right into the headlines, it goes into mainstream, it goes into alternative, it goes everywhere, and the whole world is blasted. Look what happened. And so that affects us on a collective level. And the universe is saying, this is meant to be brought forward onto a collective level, because it's meant for you to say, well, how do you respond to this? How do you see this happening? Where is the transparency in this way? And that's really the whole idea of it. It's still basically testing the waters with ourselves of saying, what's our first reaction? Do we experience ourselves very primal in that way, feeling, oh, I want vengeance, I want justice, these terrorists are going to get it? And I'll admit, I was one of the first guys that said, as soon as I saw this, oh, you bastards, and that was me. That was my energy. That's my first energy that comes up, is that primal energy of saying, these tyrants, and then you kind of look into it, you kind of come into a centering in state and say, well, rather than saying you want a vengeance, you want an iron fist here, taking care of business, rather look into the idea of blessing those who had lost their lives, who had now are returning back to source, and that they are basically kind of in a standstill because so many of the collective energies are basically creating this barrier and just feeling it's all about anger and fear and despair. And these beings now cannot really pass back into source energy, back into source consciousness. And so bless those people that have lost their lives, bless their families, bless their friends, and really look into that energy so that you are helping them to carry themselves back into a purity state to return back to source energy. And again, this is how the starting of transparency can happen.
I agree, and I think that because I'm a very visceral, primal creature, I can't get out of that. It's my
you and me both.
I tried to rid myself of it, and instead I've decided to embrace it. But I think what's most devastating for me is that I've gone really deep down this rabbit hole, and the worst part about it is that there's not really someone to blame. It's actually a bunch of well-intentioned people who are just trying to take care of their kids and make decisions. Sure, there's a few real evil fuckers out there, but even them, they're just trying to get ahead somehow. This is what's so tragic about this. So I think that so much of this pressure and this anger and this energy is who's responsible for this? And I, going as deep as I could with all of this emotion, had to realize the most tragic thing, which is, shit, I'm responsible for this. That doesn't mean I need to come down on myself. That doesn't mean I need to beat up myself. But I am these people. I am this collective. This is my forgetfulness. This is my self-responsibility. This means I've got more work to do. I've got more work to do with the people around me, because the more work we do, the less this tragedy happens. And it is different. It is already making progress in so many ways, and it's so important that while you're focused on our own responsibility of these kinds of things, you're focused on the responsibility of acknowledging the immense amount of progress and evolution and waves of transparency that are happening right now. They don't get away with things like they used to. That happens, and 20 minutes later, millions, if not hundreds of millions of people are shouting conspiracy. Never happened that way before. It didn't even happen that way on 9/11. You can't have something like this happen without people getting this tip. What is that? What's going on? This is the change. This is the evolution. And I believe we're not the 99%, we're the 100%. And that 1% of super rich needs to be embraced. We can't distance ourselves from this energy anymore, because our willingness to confront it, it wants to be seen, right? It wants to be acknowledged. It wants to be felt. If you've got some super rich, evil person creating all this tragedy in the world because they're protecting their riches, they're insecure. It's all that it's an individual, it's a human who's insecure. Holy shit. It's because they need to receive love, and they've conditioned themselves so far to be able to actually do that. They need to be held and rocked back and forth and cry for 15, 20 years. And then they'll be good. That's what they need, and that's what I need to get through this stuff. So just really bringing it back to home here of let's do something about this stuff, and let's not just let's raise our voices where we need to, but let's not just fight back. Let's build back. Let's create back. Let's push with creativity, because it's the greatest resource we have.
And that's correct as well too, because now everybody that sees these things happening with the Malaysia airline, with everything else that's happened, they just know right away. Oh, this has happened. We're not falling for it. It's kind of like the magician's tricks. You can go
Mm.
up on stage, you see the magician, sawing the woman in half, and you're able to see right through the trick and saying this is just an illusion. This is it. They're able to see through the gimmick that comes through that. And it's the same thing with this as well too, is that it's a gimmick, and it's all part of trying to contain a control grid. And that grid is crumbling by leaps and bounds. It is just dismantling itself. It's kind of like looking at a house that's had too much termite damage, and
Yeah.
now you're just seeing everything just cave in on itself and collapse. And
Mm.
that's how intelligent we have become. So especially with the people that say, well, there's sheeple and stuff. Well, you know what? You'd be very amazed about how
Mm.
intelligent people are. The media always wants to make, even the alternative media wants to make it feel that a lot of people are just sheep. They're sheeple and they're not doing this. If that were true, none of us would be able to see through the transparency of these.
Yeah.
There are a lot more people awoken on this planet than many people actually take for granted, and that's
I,
that's the big
I
truth.
I agree. And when it comes down to the simplicity of love, there might be a lot of people who might not get the framework for being conscious that we constantly associate with. But everywhere I travel, I experience love. And I experience more and more love. And that's a vibration that's exquisite. It's caring, it's generous, it's thoughtful, it's appreciative. People of other cultures smiling at you, like something big is going on. And there's a bunch of people who are so afraid to love in public, but they love in secret. Like
Yep,
they take
exactly.
time to like
Yeah.
love in secret because they're not confident enough to love in public. You know, it's happening so full on, and be very, very careful of where you put your attention, because where you put your attention in those ways, the more you think that the world is asleep, the more you create an asleep world right now. The more you put your attention on the way that the world's awakened, the more you create an awakened world. And we are in a very pivotal time that if you can let go of the belief system that everybody needs fixing and everybody's fucked up and everybody is asleep, like that's a major paradigm shift. Realize that what we're actually dealing with is an awakening of abundance, an abundance of awakening so massive and so great that people don't even know how to integrate the levels of awakening and breakthrough they're having right now. Weird Al Yankovic making videos about the Illuminati, like maybe somebody saw that. Like come on, it's all angles. You can't miss it. And it's happening through humor, it's happening through meme culture, it's epigenetic. It's astounding. I mean, scientific information has got to be some of the most popular information online. People want to learn. People want to grow. It's beautiful. It's exquisite. The desire to self-destruct is diminishing. And this actually, I'll say this. And I think we're getting close. So I'll say this, that another one of the big messages from Ratava that comes through consistently, and I always see it, and I love this message, is believe this if you choose, which is the planet is experiencing exponential resistance reduction, which means the resistance that we have towards each other and the natural systems is exponentially being reduced. And what's happening is exponential singularity, exponential connection to our higher mind and to nature is causing that resistance reduction. Now, this exponential resistance reduction really only started to take off to a certain degree at the end of 2012, the end of this calendar. That's actually what that was signifying, which is, the rise of cohesive harmony. Exponential resistance reduction. Realize that the resistance between you and your creativity, you and your abundance mechanism, you and who you truly are, you and your positive supportive behaviors and patterns is all reducing. It's becoming so much easier to be you. It's becoming so much easier to be me. And it's becoming so much easier to be who we are with each other. That's huge. And if you can really have that be the framework of your paradigm of consciousness, and you know it to be true, because I feel it. I mean, that's what works for me. I feel it. I get excited when I feel that. Maybe people out there got chills. I get that when I feel that energy. I get chills. It's so amazing. It's so amazing. And Ratava just emphasizes the importance of this recognition over and over and over again, because it's literally the Luciferian programs. It's the gnarliness. It's the serial killer programs. It's whatever, It's the toxic acidic way. It's just completely falling off and falling away. It's deteriorating into an old dream. Yeah, let's do this thing.
Exactly. All right, so we are going to wrap up with the last question for today, for this interview, and it is from Sabrina. And again, it was tying into the previous question. How do you quiet the mind enough to not interfere and allow the message in?
Would you like to answer that first? I'm really curious.
Sure, I could certainly do that. Well, the whole idea is that for me, it really is, I've done meditation since 2008, and being able to quiet the mind is really the whole idea is that you're not attaching to the thoughts. That as soon as you start attaching to your own thoughts, oh my goodness, I got to make dinner at 6:30, or am I behind the rent payment, or the kids need this, or the kids need that, or that maybe this isn't working, maybe there's disbelief. It's all of these fragmentations of thought that are attempting to get in. And it's basically making peace with your thoughts, letting the centering of the energy itself, not feeling that you have to silence the mind, but just not feeling that those thoughts are attaching to you. You're basically doing what's known as an apparition effect. So you're just letting those thoughts pass through you without the feeling that you are you're having to attach them. You're taking a fishing line and capturing them and feeling that you have to bring into that area. So, and I've also likened it to the idea of just being in a room full of people, and that all of these people that want to talk to you are the thoughts. And you have a whole different range of people and situations that they're talking to you about. And at the other end of the room is the consciousness that you're looking to bring in, to bring you forward into certain forms of inspiration, to really help you, connect in that way. And so the whole idea is that when you no longer give the attention to the people who want to talk to you in that room, those particular people will just start to venture away from you because there's no attachment that can be attained. And so you're bringing yourself into the center connection between yourself and the consciousness that you're looking to channel, to bring in that inspiration as well too. So again, it's all about being able to feel the state of not really disattachment, but not feeling that you are being attached. You're reaching a state of natural tranquility with your thoughts. You've understood them. You're acknowledging that they exist, but you do no longer have to attach to them. So that the mind itself can be centered rather than the idea of feeling that it has to be completely devoid of any thought. It's being centered so that that energy of inspiration can come through in that way.
Well said. I agree. When I go into meditation, a lot of that is me not trying to grab every thought, like as if it's a rope I need to climb. Mm-hmm. And I really I listen with my heart, and then my mind can relax and slow down. For me, sometimes it's harder to be like in a dark room with my eyes closed, trying to quiet my mind. That can be a little bit more challenging to me. But like going to the ocean and watching the waves for 20 minutes and listening to them with my ears and really listening with my heart, because for me, quieting the mind is about a deeper listening. So I'm transitioning from the listening up here, especially frontal lobe listening, and all of the wavelengths that are present with that. I'm listening down the back of my neck and into my chest, and that's so different. That's so different. And so what I do is I just drop in and I allow that listening to take hold, and the thoughts start to fade away. And when they come in, I don't attach to them. I just keep on letting them pass through. But use nature as a tool to cultivate that, because then you build the listening muscle. And then that muscle can be exercised outside of nature. But if you haven't really found or experienced that place ever, or it's new to you, nature's your best friend. I'll sit back and I'll just look at tree branches and listen with my heart and just listen to nature. And soon enough, I forget that I've had thoughts, that I haven't had thoughts. Or, it's like, oh, there's a thought again. Wow, like, check that out, they're back. And that's a very special place. And the thoughts that come in, on the other side of that place always tend to be full of really powerful and supportive insights. Um, yeah, so really cultivate your relationship with the deeper listening, um, and embrace the void. Like embrace the spaciousness. Uh, and you can use breathing practices to help you. I just relax. I surrender. I just let it in. And the more that I just like, like that's where I actually feel like I'm practicing centropy rather than entropy. Entropy is out, extension, information, expansiveness. The centropy is how I reel all of that in, and it's my deeper listening. And I feel almost like that. And this goes back to channeling all of the aspects of myself and my higher self almost settle into a grid, and I feel like I'm restored, and all these little fragmented things settle back in, and I'm like polished back into my whole self, and then I can extend again, and do all that, but practice entropy with entropy, and that deep listening is the best tool.
Exactly. Well, Amateo, thank you so much for being on the show today with Conscious Matrix Interviews. It was a pleasure having you on. Wonderful topics that we were discussing, and thanks everybody for your wonderful questions. I know we had so many other questions that are there, but again, there's only so much we can cover within a show of this length. But Amateo, again, I want to thank you so much for being on, and definitely have you on again in the future. And looking forward, maybe we might do another event sometime. I think Portal to Ascension may want to have you and me and a few others together to do an event together. So I think that'd be great. So Amateo, again, thank you so much. How can people get a hold of you?
Thank you so much, Brad. Really, really appreciate today. This was so wonderful. I love sharing in this kind of communication with you, and thank you to everyone who tuned in and to the audience at large. You guys are amazing. Keep doing the good work. I love you. Just vibe your vibe. You can find me AmateoRa.com. I've got a new site coming soon. I'm working on it. Going to be up by the end of the month. Got a new program I'll be launching in August called Essence to Impact. You can follow me on Facebook. Just follow me on Facebook. It's the easiest way to stay track of everything I'm doing. And of course, Creator Course, creatorcourse.com. Got an online magazine and blog there, and we're building an online school for you. So we've got a lot of exciting things in development. And if you want to get a hold of me personally, just shoot me a Facebook message. Absolutely, feel free to reach out. And I'm very responsive, very engaging. If you have any questions or want to talk about anything, I'm here.
Great, excellent. Well, thank you again, Amateo, for being part of the program. It was a really great privilege and personal respect and love and appreciation to you. Thank you so much, and keep spreading your light. And same with everybody else. Keep spreading your light in the world. The world really is not as bad as you may think it is. So continue to be that love. Continue to be what you want to be, and let that shed throughout the entire world with your personal light. Be the example of who you want to be in the world. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning into Conscious Matrix Interviews. This will be archived. Go to consciousmatrix.com under the events section, and you can click on Conscious Matrix Interviews, and you'll see the Amateo Ra link there, where you can look back on this archive recording. Again, Amateo, thank you for being part of the show today. Much love to you. Much love to everybody. Thank you so much. Namaste, and may it be well with you. Take care. Goodbye.
Au revoir.